I gotta be honest with you. Back when the whole Jake Paul show started, I never thought we'd end up here. He first came onto my radar, I saw him flatline Nate Robinson.
Singing the hymns. He's trying to get
Snoop Dogg's out there cracking jokes about it. It was a ferocious shot. Nate's just face down on the canvas. Not a good look. That's when I first saw this whole thing. And if you'd have told me back then that we'd be here, wouldn't have believed it. I didn't necessarily think that he was going to be a one and done, but I did not think that Jake Paul would be taking this sport as seriously as he has. Didn't think that he would be defeating the caliber of opponents that he has. Didn't think we'd be here, but we are. And look, I got to be honest, it's entertaining. I look forward to it. Always interested to see what the man has planned next. And after I saw him in that first fight with Tyron Woodley, that's when I knew that the dude was more serious than I thought, man. I mean, look, Tyron Woodley isn't a professional boxer, but he was a legit champion in the UFC. I'm a huge fan of the UFC, been watching it forever and a day, and Tyron was legit, man. And he had ferocious power in that right hand, flatline plenty of guys with it, quick hands, knew what he was doing. So coming over into the boxing realm, it wasn't like we expected him to be as effective as he was, but at the same time, me, along with a whole host of other people, that's when we expected the hype train to end. That's when we expected Jake Paul to, I don't want to necessarily say get exposed, but that's when he was going to have reached his limit. I expected Woodley to go out there and win that fight. I expected him to land some big shots on Jake Paul. I expected him to kind of show him that it wasn't a game. So Jake Paul ekes out that little split decision. I'm like, wow, this guy looked a lot better than I thought he would, man. He's putting in the work. He's got a good team. He's doing what he needs to do. He's taking it seriously, dude, and he's getting fast-tracked for a variety of reasons, right? And I'm not necessarily talking about he's getting fast-tracked as far as his popularity. We know that that's going to cross over. He's got the whole fan base and everything. I'm talking about getting fast-tracked in the way that his skill set is developing. But then he goes out there and scores that vicious knockout.
From time to time, just haven't been.
And that's the only way I can describe it, man. I mean, we saw when he smoked Ben Askren. We saw when he smoked Nate Robinson. And look, don't get me wrong. Those guys are who they are. It is what it is. Ben Askren, you can say, he was also a former world champion. He's a wrestler, blah, blah, blah. But look, we're talking about a wrestler with a horrible neck, horrible back at that point, no head movement, had been knocked out by more than one time, if I remember correctly. At the very least, he had that just nasty, nasty flying knee that Jorge Masvidal smoked him with. But Jake Paul goes out there and lands the big right hand, puts him out. And it was almost like he was landing the big right hand against a heavy bag. We're not getting any defensive movement. We're not getting anything slick. He's not rolling any steam off of it or anything. We saw the shot with Nate Robinson where he was adding to the power by coming in with all this momentum and just getting flatline with it. But then he lands the shot on Woodley. And same thing. Woodley face plants into the canvas, man. He was out before he even hit the ground. And one, it showcased the power, but two, it also showcased how he was able to land that shot, how he was able to set that up. It was throughout the fight. It wasn't like he was getting beat and that was just a home run in the bottom of the ninth that he was going to need to get him out of there. That was putting the icing on the cake. That was the cherry on top of an already good performance. Then he comes out against Anderson Silva. I expected him to win that fight. I thought that at that point in Anderson Silva's career, with the progression that Jake Paul had made, just everything considered, that he was going to be able to win it. Didn't necessarily expect him to be able to drop the Spider in the way that he did. But look, man, we're talking now about a guy that even though Anderson Silva's retired, this wasn't the prime Silva. Make no mistake about it. But this was a man who was a phenomenal striker in his prime. And he always had great hands. So coming over to boxing, especially since he had been focusing on it lately, the fact that Jake Paul was able to go out there and put in the work that he did, he was able to drop him, he was able to land some good counters, he was able to land that right hand. That's all really impressive, and it goes to show what we already had been seeing. It just reinforces it, and that's that the man is taking this seriously. He's a fighter. He's treating it as a professional treats his craft, and he's going out there and he's continually getting better. You combine that with the team he has around him, guys like BJ Flores, Jalen Love, the whole host of other trainers, like, dude, it's legit, and we're seeing the results of that. And now, we're seeing him step in against Tommy Fury. And here's the thing that's funny. I've seen in the build-up to this fight, Tommy Fury repeatedly say, "You're not serious. You've been beating old man. You've been beating bums. You've been beating, former NBA stars and MMA guys. I'm the guy who's been taking this serious. I'm the professional. I'm the guy who's been doing this forever. But when you look at his record, a man who turned pro in 2018, and this is only going to be his 9th fight, is that what you see from a guy who you think is taking it serious, a guy who's a true professional, a guy who's been doing it forever? Like, I think Teddy Atlas said it best, man. He said, Tommy Fury is a guy that I would hire to play a fighter in a movie. I wouldn't hire him to be a fighter. I wouldn't train him as a fighter. The dude's not serious. I would hire him to play a fighter in a movie. Built really well, good looking guy, knows how to throw punches. That's exactly what he is. This dude has been modeling. He was doing reality TV or something. I haven't seen it. Like, no. When you watch him, what do you see? You see a guy who can move around a little bit on his feet. I thought Jake Paul called it out well in the sense that he's pretty predictable in the way that he circles, but he moves around decent on his feet, especially early on in the fight. We saw in his last fight, especially Buczynski, he works a good jab. Good for him. Throws right hands here and there and he lands them. Tries to get some combinations off at times. But let's be honest with each other. When we look at this dude's record as far as being undefeated, we're talking about a man who goes out there and has been fighting straight up bums. And I hate to put it out there like that. Obviously it sounds pretty disrespectful speaking about his opponents. And I don't mean that as a man-to-man type thing, but I certainly wouldn't. But I mean it from the sense of like when we're talking about the caliber of his opponents from professional boxing standpoint, these dudes were bums, man. They had a combined record of 24, 176, and 5. 24 wins, 176 losses, and 5 draws. That's the combined record of all of his opposition. Only 2 of those dudes had a winning record. Right? One of them was his last opponent, 10-1. Think, okay, that sounds decent. But of course, he couldn't even have like a 10-1 fighter coming off of a win. He was coming off that one loss, which was a knockout loss. That's the time that he happened to choose it. First fight outside of Poland. Coming over there to fight Tommy Fury, like, man, this dude's riding off of his last name because we all know who Tyson Fury is. We all know what he brings to the table. If it wasn't for the fact that he was Tyson Fury's brother, we'd never hear about him. There's a reason Jake Paul is picking this fight. Jake Paul's the A side, man. There's a reason that he's been stalking this dude for the last 2.5 years trying to get this fight. Tommy Fury has continually pulled out back and forth. There's a reason all of that's been going down the way it is. Jake Paul hasn't been setting this up so he can lose. Jake Paul hasn't been stalking this man because he thinks this is going to be a fight that there's a legitimate chance and he isn't going to get the win. I'm surprised at the odds. I really am. When I look at the skill set that Jake Paul brings to the table, he's nothing special, but he's got power, legit power in that right hand. Lands it to the body well, lands it upstairs well, knows how to hide it, knows how to set it up, knows how to counter with it and lead with it, knows how to work it in combinations. Like, he's good with the right hand. And I see Tommy Fury get lit up with the right hand. Daniel Buczynski was the only thing he was landing all fight was the right hand. And like I said, he's got legit power in it. He's been in there against a far higher level of competition. He's been tested in the ring under the lights, and he's also been tested in sparring. I guarantee you that team that's working with him is putting him through his paces. And we know that because we've seen some of the sparring partners, like Asim Rockman Jr., and we've seen the progression that Jake Paul's making. We've seen him get tested in the ring and not crumble. All of those things reinforce the fact that we know that what this man is doing is correct. He's following the path. He's taking things seriously. Is that what we think about Tommy Fury? Has he been going out there and fighting better and better competition? Has he been looking better and better every time he goes out? Do you think he's been going out there and getting really tested and sparring and getting really pushed by his camp? No way, dude. I'm taking Jake Paul all day in this fight. I've been seeing odds like minus 150, minus 175. I think there's value to be had in those lines as well. I think Jake Paul's going to come out with this one. It's scheduled for 8. We haven't even seen Tommy Fury go 8 rounds before. Haven't even seen him go 8, much as 8 hard rounds. I think when he gets put into a bad spot, when he gets cracked, when he gets hurt, he isn't going to show up. I don't think he's going to be as tough as Jake Paul is. I don't think he's as physically as strong, but I also just think mentally he's not going to be as tough. I think that when he gets put into a bad spot, he's going to look to survive, maybe even going to get out of there. Wouldn't be the first time that we've seen that from Jake Paul, land that big right hand, put him down. Who knows? Either way, I think Jake Paul comes out with the victory on this one. I think it will be an entertaining fight, that's for sure. And I think there's value in that line. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Tommy Fury, through that little bit of footwork and the jab that he's got, he's going to be able to make things happen? You think he's going to be able to win out points? He doesn't have any power at all. I mean, when you look at the caliber of opponent that this man's been fighting, he should have 100% knockouts. Not even close. No power, no head movement, and he's going to get gassed. So you tell me what's going to happen against a fighter where he already is susceptible to the right hand, and Jake Paul's got a big right hand. I think it's pretty clear cut. But maybe I'm not seeing something here right. Let me know what you guys think.